In this video, we're going to be ranking every single Tottenham Hotspur player's start to the season. I'm joined by my two glamorous assistants for today. Kish, welcome back to the channel, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
And Ben as well. Obviously, everyone knows Kish and Ben. We've done videos on Kish's channel and Ben's channel, which I believe have been posted already. So the links to them will be in the description if you want to go check them out as well. But let's just get straight into it, boys. Obviously, we are, 7 games into the season now. Played 10 games overall in all competitions. We're sat third in the league. It's been a pretty decent start. And we are starting off here with Wilson Odobert. Kish, I'll let you take the floor on Wilson Odobert. Where would you rank him in terms of his start to the season?
I think he's actually growing into it now. Like I've said a few times, I think he's someone who he's never going to make your team worse because of the technical level he's at. I think he's someone who's around good players can sort of link up really well, but he's never going to drag you to a result in like a struggling team. I think he looks so much better when we've got Udogie playing left back and Simons in the 10, players that he can really work with and combine with. For me, I'm actually going to say a good start. I'd probably have him in between about average and a good start, but I'd probably edge it to a good start.
So you'd have him towards the lower end of a good start?
Yeah, that's
I agree with that. I agree with that. Anything to add on Odobert, Ben?
No, I'd probably agree, to be honest. I do feel like if he can just add a little bit more in terms of output in that way, like I do think it's not really that much of a problem, him kind of being more of a facilitator at the moment, because it's helping to get more out of Udogie from an attacking point of view. I feel like the relationship they've developed on that left-hand side has been good. It's disappointing that we haven't seen it more frequently in games like Wolves at home, for example, where maybe you should have started Odobert on the left and Simons in the 10 rather than Simons on the left, but I think that's kind of that's a bigger issue. But I'd like to see Odobert give him more of a chance in those kind of games. I'd like to see him grab it a little bit more when it does come his way as well. He 100%. Fades out of games a little bit too much at times, but I like what I've seen from him. I've always kind of been an admirer of his, and I feel like he's only going to get better. So, yeah,
I want to see when Spence does play left back, because he will.
Yeah,
I think it has to be Odobert to play with him.
Yeah, it can't be Johnson
or Simons. I think Odobert's the only one that can really provide that width when Spence is obviously playing a bit more inverted. So I think that might mean that maybe with the Udogie we play someone else sometimes, like a Tel or a Colomwani or whoever. I think Odobert has to play when Spence plays, because otherwise we're going to have no real width on that left side.
Agreed. 100%, and I agree with that placement for him. I think, we want a little bit more, but it's definitely not been a bad start to the season at all for Odobert. Ben, I'm going to chuck you Pape Matar Sarr, a player who's obviously had an electric start to the season, was probably one of our best players for the first few games, but hasn't really been involved in the last couple of matches. Where would you rank his start to the season?
Yeah, I think that's mainly just down to fitness and injury, isn't it? It's we didn't see him obviously from the start on Saturday, where maybe I expected him to, against a Leeds midfield that's got a lot of energy and a lot of legs. He decided to go a different way, so maybe there is still something holding back a little bit from being able to start games. But I'd put him, just because he hasn't featured that much in the last handful, I'd probably put him top of a good start. The way that he started the season, like you said, he was one of our best players for the first few games, and it looks like he definitely looks like he's gone up a level from last year. I think he's a player that's kind of constantly maturing all the time. But just because he hasn't featured that much recently, I would say a good start. He's filled in a couple of different positions as well. He's played in kind of a midfield 3, slightly deeper. He's also played as a number 10. I actually think that number 10 role suits him a little bit more than maybe someone like a Lucas Bergvall. I don't think he should be a 10, but I think with his ability to kind of, when Spurs are going a bit more direct, hoover up the second balls, he's very good at kind of winning the second one off the knockdown from Richarlison or whoever. He's got good ability to arrive late in the box as well. Yeah, I'd put him top of good start, close to absolutely outstanding, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Pape Matar Sarr is the kind of player who's going to get a lot of praise this season, so I think Frank's going to love him in that 10, especially in those bigger games, the games that sort of have more attention and more eyes on them. I think he's going to really, really excel in those kind of games, like you saw him do against City, so I think that's a totally fair placement for him. I'm going to take Archie Gray, because Archie Gray is a player who has had quite limited opportunities so far this season. Obviously I think his only start of the season so far has come against Doncaster in the Cup, which I actually think he was a really, really positive game for him.
He started the league game against Burnley as well, Gray.
Yes, started the league game against Burnley as well, which I thought he really grew into, actually. I thought he was quite good sort of as the game progressed in that one. So I think I actually think Gray's had quite a positive start to the season in terms of the cameos that we've seen him in. Playing in that midfield role, playing in a little bit more of an advanced midfield role, I think, than some people will maybe expect him to play in. And I think I don't think you could put him in, I don't know, I think I'll probably put him in the bottom of a good start just because I think he's had such limited opportunities. But when we have seen him, I think it's been positive, and I think he's probably made a claim to have more minutes moving forward. And again, I think he's a great option to have in that midfield, of course. But when you've got players like Bergvall, Sarr, Palhinha, Bentancur in front of you, it's always going to be more difficult for him. So, Kish, I want to ask you with Archie Gray, did you expect him to get more minutes than he has done at the start of this season, or maybe playing in a different role to what he has? And what would you sort of like to see from him going forward?
Yeah, I think the first Premier League game of the season he started. Has he started a Prem game since then? I don't think he has.
No.
And he started in a sort of the most defensive role. And I actually really liked him there. I think we discussed it on my video, but Ben kind of made the point that he sees him more as a number 8, and I probably agree at the moment. Although we are just lacking a player who can pass the ball from deep, and I don't think Gray's like an elite passer, but he's definitely a good passer, and he spots passes really well and doesn't really hesitate to play them. So I do kind of want to see him in that number 6 role, being able to pick up the ball from the back 4 and then start dictating things. Although I do think his energy and his carrying is really beneficial to him playing as more of a number 8. I think there is a place where he can bring stuff at number 6 for us, just while we're lacking a certain profile there.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree with all of that. Ben, I'm going to throw you maybe a slightly more negative one. I'm going to give you Vicario. What have been your thoughts on him at the start of this season?
Oh yeah, you've actually skipped Kish.
Oh, sorry, no, Kish.
Chuck him that grenade instead of me.
Kish, you go Vicario. I mean, I'm sure Ben's escaped.
I'm actually going to say really not good, to be honest. I don't.
Yeah.
I think from what his levels can be, especially just in terms of shot stopping, I think it's been poor. I don't think he's made any really outrageous saves that I can think of. And then obviously his distribution has been really, really poor. And obviously if we're looking at the squad in terms of the performers in the squad, I think he's probably, as a first team player, been our weakest point so far. And so someone's got to take that category. I think Frank is asking for a slightly different type of distribution that he's been used to under Ange. One is kind of maybe dwelling on the ball a little bit more, which obviously brings its own kind of struggles, because you have to think about your passes more. You might attract more pressure, and Frank does want to sometimes slow that build up down, whereas with Ange it was kind of all off instinct. It's like as soon as you see it, just play it, and often very short passes, whereas Frank might want to draw a press and then clip out to the fullback, and I just don't think he has neither like the calm or the technique either to find those kind of clip passes. And then when you take away his like brilliant shot stopping as well, there's not much to go off there. So I would probably have him there, and I think it's probably something that will need addressing if it continues.
100%. Ben, are you the same? Are you sort of worried about the slight regression we've seen in Vicario this season?
Yeah, but I'd probably put him in concerning. I wouldn't say really not good. If you look at some of the numbers, he still ranks up there quite highly for saves. He's made the 3rd most saves in the division so far. He's kept 3 clean sheets. His save percentage is the 2nd best so far in the league as well. He has made errors, and I think his ball playing ability has regressed, even though it wasn't that great under Ange anyway. But like Kish said, and I think we touched on it in the video yesterday as well, we're talking about, I think a lot of it's more instructional rather than what Vicario's kind of it looks like he's choosing to turn down certain passes, whereas under Ange it was all about kind of like get the ball kind of moving just quickly again and get the ball back into play. So that's been a bit frustrating, but I think maybe that's more on the way that we're being set up and coached rather than Vicario himself. But his distribution outside of that has been really poor, and against Leeds, the commanding of his box was quite concerning. He had some good games. I thought he had a good game at Man City, made a couple of really big saves there, one in the first half as well. But there's been moments where I think Vicario has never instilled the most amount of confidence in any fan really, despite having a decent career so far at Spurs. He's a bit like Gomez or a bit like Lloris towards the end, where it's like, this guy's a good goalkeeper, but you're still a little bit on edge. And I feel like that has just ramped up a little bit this season. And especially with the fact that we have got a good young goalkeeper that can provide competition to him. And I think it's created a bit more of a dialogue around Vicario, considering 100%. That Kinski is good on the ball. And I think the biggest issue around Vicario this season has probably been his distribution, as well as some slightly hairy moments when coming for crosses and stuff, which has never been a big strength of him in any way. But I would say concerning rather than really not good. Just I don't think he's been awful, but there is a conversation to be had around him, I'd say.
I'd probably agree. I think the distribution's been the most frustrating part for me. And I think in terms of distribution, it's been really not good. But yeah, I think concerning for me with Vicario, I probably agree.
The only reason I put him in really not good is because I'm trying to look at anyone that can go in that category, and I'm struggling. But go on,
I think I've got a couple, I reckon, that can go in there.
Yeah. Right. At the end, if we've got a lot of players in concerning, at the end we can choose sort of one to move down there and sort of be harsh with one player. But Ben, I'm not going to let you avoid a grenade. You're going to take Richarlison. What have been your thoughts from Richarlison start to the season?
He's one that I would kind of think about putting in really not good, but I think that's quite harsh considering the fact that he has got 3 league goals for us. And one of them was an incredible finish against Burnley. Well, 2 incredible finishes against Burnley, actually, to be fair. I just think his overall play since that game has been really, really poor. Like, really poor. I think it's kind of got worse. The thing is, I wouldn't put it... He's a weird one because I kind of think about average just because I don't really expect that much more from Richarlison. And I wouldn't put it in concerning because it's not like I'm really excited about Richarlison's development. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh my God, we're like he's regressing. This is a talent that I really thought was going to shine. So I'd probably put him in about average, to be honest. But I do think, for the most part, his overall play, in terms of his link-up play, his hold-up play, the guy's constantly on the floor. It's quite frustrating, and especially when we're being a little bit more direct in our play as well under Frank. You want that striker that's going to be able to provide a good backboard for your players to kind of come in and win the second balls. I think he had 2 good games at the start of the season against Burnley. He was good against Man City as well. He worked tirelessly in that game, to be fair to him. But since then, I think his performances have been really, really not at the level that we'd need, considering he's our only real striker option at the moment as well. And that's why it would be 100% concerning overall. But I don't really expect that much more from Richarlison. I've kind of come to the point where it's like, I don't think he's ever going to get any better. So I'd probably say about average.
No, I hear that as well. I think the thing with Richarlison that's probably concerning is, like you said, the fact that Kyle Moani, the fact that Dominic Solanke still aren't fit, and he has been sort of our only option up there. And I think you saw Mathis Tel.
The striker situation is concerning.
Yeah, I'd say, Mathis Tel coming in against Leeds and sort of showing what he did, I think that was a better performance than Richarlison's had sort of over the last 4 or 5 games. And I'd probably agree with about average. I think, he's popped up with a few important goals for us, and I think I'm not expecting any more either, really, from Richarlison, and I don't think it's been hugely concerning, and I do think as well it's not been helped by the fact that, Solanke, Kolomoani have been injured, so I'd probably agree with about average, but I'd probably have him nearer the bottom of that sort of category. Kish, I'm going to throw you... Who am I going to throw you? I'm going to throw you Micky van der Ven, because I actually think he's an interesting one. I think we've had a good start to the season defensively, but what have you made of his performances?
Are we ranking these relative to their abilities or to the squad? Because I think for what
take everything into account, I reckon.
I think for what Van der Ven can bring, I probably say he's at about average. I don't think he's been incredible. I think some difficult moments in defending his box. I think against Leeds, what was Leeds' first goal again?
It was ball into the box, Calvert-Lewin brought it down, had the deflected shot.
Not specifically that goal, but there has been moments where I've just been a little bit concerned with, he's a little bit static sometimes.
There was the Calvert-Lewin chance in the second half where he sort of turned. I think Vicario Van der Ven was sleeping a little bit in that moment and sort of allowed that opportunity for him.
I don't think he has the most natural defensive instincts in kind of defending his own box, especially aerially as well. Obviously, he's so good at defending the space. But I think he's probably, for me, at about average. Obviously above Richarlison, but I know how good he can be. And I think I've wanted to see more of him on the ball in terms of that carrying. I know that's potentially an instruction dependent thing, but I think he could bring more in terms of his carrying. Obviously, he hasn't been bad, but I'm comparing it to kind of what I know he can be. So I'd probably have him about average.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, actually. I think there's been some slightly frustrating performances. I don't think he was great against Bournemouth. I remember, Kish, me and you were in the South Stand watching the Bournemouth game together, and we're getting quite frustrated with sort of his clearances, and like some of his headed clearances. They were quite weak, and I think he's a defender who obviously was brought in for the Ange Postecoglou system, has so many qualities that mean that he's obviously going to suit pretty much any defensive system. But I also do think there's an adaptation period that he's going through in terms of really becoming that great/elite box defender. And I don't think he's there yet. I agree. I think, I'd have him right in between about average and a good start. I think his ability, like, he should be an absolutely outstanding. And I think that he's probably been slightly underwhelming in a couple of games. I think he's had a couple of really, really good games as well. But I think, Ben, where would you place him? I'd probably have him in a good start. But
I would probably put him in a good start as well. But I think that's fair what Kish is saying in terms of relative to his ability versus what we're actually kind of seeing. I think you can't say he's had a bad start. I think he's definitely had a good one. But maybe you're wanting a little bit more from certain aspects of his game. And maybe he's not been outstanding enough to make us feel like, wow, he's gone up another level. But I do feel like he's had some good performances where he's shown his leadership capabilities as well. Obviously, he was a captain against Bodo Glimt. I thought he was actually good in that game in terms of defending his own box and dealing with some stuff in the channels. I thought he was really, really good against Villarreal in the Champions League home game. That's probably his best game so far this season. I would probably, again, like kind of Kish said, relative to his ability and expectation, probably at the bottom of good start, but I could see why you would say about average.
If I'm like comparing him to like Odobert, I think Van der Ven's been more important to us, but I'm talking about what we expect from them.
100%. That should be taken into account as well, definitely.
Yeah, people will see this and think that it means that we think Odobert's had a better start to the season than Archie Gray or like Van der Ven. That's not what we're saying. It's just about taking everything into account in terms of their own expectations about how you thought they'd kick on, how you thought they'd develop.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right, nice. I'm just going to put in a couple of these boys who haven't really played as much this season. I'm just going to put them sort of in... I'll actually leave them at the bottom here. Like Kulusevski, Yves Bissouma, Kota Takai, Janae Byfield, Maddison, Dane Scarlett, etc. Yeah, they haven't really played at all really at the start of this season. I'm gonna take
Ben Davis in there as well, to be honest, because Ben Davis, I think Ben Davis is like the possible one to rate in this.
I do. I want to talk a little bit about players like Dominic Solanke, even though again they've not really played much this season really at all. I'm going to take João Palhinha to talk about, because I think João Palhinha is a really interesting one. I think he's split the fan base a little bit in terms of when you're talking about in possession versus out of possession, certain game states where you sort of what games you'd want to see him play in, what games you might want to see different midfield pairings in. But I think overall for João Palhinha, I think he's made a really positive start to his Spurs career. I think in that Brighton game, I was very, very impressed with him in the second half. I think against Man City, he was outstanding. I think in terms of my expectations of him and the limitations that we knew he kind of had in possession anyway, I don't think he's been helped at times by being paired with Rodrigo Bentancur, and I think that's really highlighted the sort of weaknesses that the pair have in terms of on the ball and that ball progression. But in terms of what he was brought in for, I think it's between a good start and absolutely... I wouldn't put him in absolutely outstanding. I'd probably put him atop of a good start, because I do think there's been games where he has struggled maybe a little bit more, especially on the ball when we've been dominating sides. But I think that João Palhinha has had a good start, a very good start to his
I'd actually
Spurs
disagree
career.
with that in the sense that I actually don't think he's struggled in any... The only game I've seen him struggling was the Bayern Munich pre-season friendly, which he was clearly not up to speed. I think we've struggled as a team with him there alongside Bentancur. I don't think I've not really seen Paulinho's on the ball limitations that much. I just think it's highlighted more because of his partners rather than... Like, we've not got the right dynamic and balance, whereas I think... It's not the issues that maybe we're seeing when he's in the team aren't actually anything to do with him. That's kind of how I feel about Paulinho.
No, definitely.
But
in pre-season, I can't remember which game it was, but there was a really good example where, obviously, out of possession, he was marshalling in front of the back four. But when we built up, he was kind of just getting out the way and really not being a big major part in build up. And I can't remember if it was Bentancur or someone else next to him who was dictating play much more. And so, like, it was obvious that Frank recognised that he is not the one to be leading that kind of progressive pass kind of responsibility and building up for us. But obviously out of possession, he brings excellent things. I think, like you said, it's been the pairing that's been frustrating more than anyone him specifically.
Yeah. Did we play a pre-season game? Was Bayern the last game that we had before the Super Cup?
Yeah,
did we have one in between?
Oh, maybe it wasn't the
maybe it was the Super Cup.
It was Man City game, I think I'm talking.
Oh, right, yeah.
Where
I think it was. I think we did go from Bayern straight into the Super Cup, then straight into Burnley at the weekend. But who might I've forgotten the order now? Who am I throwing to next? It's Kish next, isn't it?
I think it's me.
Is it you? Okay, right. Yeah. Right, yeah. Cool. Ben.
No, it's not me, Ben.
Is it?
Yeah.
I did Richarlison and you did Van der Ven, right? And then Kish did João Palhinha.
Yeah. All right. We'll throw it to Ben. Ben, I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you Pedro Porro. What have you thought of Pedro Porro?
Really good start, to be honest. I think he's had some difficult moments in some games. Bodo Glimt kind of being the main one, but I think that's the only game I've kind of really seen him struggle in from a defensive point of view. I think he's going to be really important to what we do under Frank because he helps us progress the ball from deep. We've seen the benefits of his crossing so far as well, although the burden of that's probably fallen more on Mohamed Kudus. But I think the relationship that he's developed with Kudus down that right-hand side is really nice because I think quite often what you'll see is we've spoken quite a bit about like the double width on Spurs' flanks and how that can actually be quite harmful at times. But I think when you've got a player that is so good with his back to goal in Kudus who can win a lot of those 50-50s when they're playing on the same line and Porro's kind of playing the ball into his back, Kudus can kind of fashion a lot of more dangerous situations for himself down there. And constantly when Kudus is driving at a fullback, because he's got that ability to go inside and outside, the defender doesn't know quite what he's going to do, but he's always got Porro backing him up for a cross. Like Porro is always there when Kudus can't beat his man. And Porro, like you saw the quality of delivery for the goal against Bodo Glimt for Micky Van der Ven. I know it was a set piece that led to that, but it was kind of a similar situation where it's like Porro in that kind of half space, a little bit deeper from those kind of areas is just like cash money in terms of his delivery. And I think we've seen that quite a lot with Kudus so far down that right-hand side, the relationship that they're building leading to Porro being quite a dangerous threat. And defensively, I think he's been pretty sound for the most part as well. He struggled against Semenyo, but
that was
most fullbacks would at the moment, to be honest. But I think there's only been 2 games. I love the leadership that he brings to the team as well. I think his mentality is up there with some of the other leaders at Spurs. I thought he was actually a bit unlucky to kind of be left out of that leadership group, to be honest. I thought he was going to be picked when he was made captain against Doncaster. Yeah, him and Romero crucial to the way that we build up, and I've only seen him a couple of times at fault for things defensively. So I'm really happy with Porro so far. I'd say just below Palhinha, above Sarr in good start. I think right on top of that.
What even is a leadership group? Like, when did this?
I think it's a bit irrelevant. Like, I do think it's become a little bit irrelevant.
I don't remember this being a thing until Ange, and now suddenly we just need a leadership group.
I don't understand it. If you've got a captain, then you obviously have other natural leaders in the dressing room.
Yeah, all you need is a vice captain. I kind of feel like that's it.
Literally, I don't really get it at all. And I think people are kicking up a bit of a fuss about the leadership group, and it just doesn't really matter, does it?
I think the point I was making was just that I think that I do agree. I think it's quite frankly not that important, but I do think that Porro is like I think he's more of a leader. I think the point I was making is he's more of a leader than people actually see and give him credit for.
He's got a really good mentality. And he's been super consistent for us. I mean, over the past couple of years. And I think with the defensive stuff with Porro, like we all know and we recognise that he's never going to be sort of a Jed Spence level of one-on-one defender, is he? He's never. You have to sacrifice that a little bit for his on-the-ball ability, and that's not an issue. And I also think his defensive sort of weaknesses are overplayed a little bit sometimes by people in our fan base. I don't think he's as bad defensively as some people try and make out he is. And anyone's going to struggle against a player like Antoine Semenyo this season, really, aren't they? So I don't think it's. I also
think when we sustain pressure more and we start dominating games better, you'll see more attacking output from him. Well, not necessarily like in terms of numbers, but I think those half space crosses we haven't seen enough of because our games have been so transitional. It's been him kind of in deep areas, like clipping balls over the top. Whereas if we can start sustaining attacks more and camping in the opposition half, then you're going to see him picking up the ball in more advanced areas and being able to put passes in.
Yeah, and also get shots off as well, because that is such a dangerous weapon that he's got against teams that are going to sit in. And when we can sustain pressure, get a shot off from outside the box, because his finishing ability from those kind of positions is ridiculous. Yeah, I think you're right. I do think we've only really the only moments where we have seen that from Porro are when we have been able to sustain pressure, but a lot of that is down to Kudus being that constant kind of threat who can just, there'll be like a 5-10 minute spell where we kind of just keep feeding everything to him, and Porro is always there for the cutback, but sometimes it just doesn't happen because Kudus beats the man, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but their relationship, I think, is really, really nice, those two.
100%. And speaking of the man, Kudus, Kish, talk to me about Kudus, because I think there's only one place you can really go.
He's been our best player this season, I think.
Yeah.
Facts.
I can't remember a bad game he's had, to be honest. I don't think he's had an average game. I think every time I've watched him, I've been like, this guy is ridiculous, and he just keeps impressing me. Not even just in terms of both entertainment, but also effectiveness. Like, obviously, I've always been a big speaker of I always thought we needed more entertaining players at Spurs that I want to go and watch. He's one of those, but he's also so effective. I made a video about it, like any kind of 70-30 in favour of the opposition, he'll turn into a 50-50 because he's that relentless, quick, strong. He turns like loose balls that should just run out for throw-ins or goal kicks into like beneficial attacks because he can get on the end of it and then keep possession of it. And then his 1v1 ability is crazy as well. It's mad because he's got 4 assists, 1 goal in. Those are good numbers, but it feels like he could have double that. Like, do you know what I mean? In terms of how many good opportunities he gets himself into just from his pure ability. I just think those numbers could skyrocket if we channel him correctly, and if he kind of gets that mentality of wanting to put output on the end of all his moments. I think he's 100%. A ridiculous player, and I think we should build the team around him, really.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think he's been our best player this season. So, I'd echo that. He's going to be top of absolutely outstanding for sure. Ben, I want to throw you Jed Spence. I think, again, the player who has sort of been in and out of the starting 11 at times this season, made a really, really strong start. What have you made of his start?
I'd chuck him in and around the middle of a good start, to be honest. Maybe either above Sarr or below Sarr. I definitely think he's above the 3 that we've got there, because I think once again in the game against Man City, in the game against PSG, in the Super Cup, you've seen his incredible strength when it comes to one-on-one defending. I do think, though, the thing that's kind of held him back a little bit, again, a little bit like we spoke about Palhinha, isn't really his fault. It's not down to a limitation. Well, with Palhinha, it's more about a limitation in his game in terms of his on-the-ball ability. But Jed Spence kind of playing on that side, I think we haven't seen anywhere near as much as attacking output that we want from him because of the players that he has been partnered with. There was that run of games where we played Johnson on the left and Spence on the left, and then it kind of moved to Spence and Simons, and it's just not a dynamic that really, really worked, or we couldn't see the best out of Spence for that reason. When you've got someone in Odobert, like Kish kind of spoke about earlier, that can be far more comfortable holding the width and kind of then drifting into kind of central areas, but being far more comfortable doing both of them and receiving and kind of creating different angles, that's when you'll see Spence improve down that side for sure. Again, I do think as well, there was a period around the Villarreal game, I think, did he start in the Doncaster game at left back as well? I think it was the Doncaster game, because Udogie didn't play. Udogie was on the bench.
Yeah.
I think it was Porro and Spence.
Or was it David? No, David hasn't played yet.
No.
I can't remember. But maybe it does feel like there's been a couple of games recently in the last 3 or 4 where a little bit of sloppiness has crept in a little bit from Spence. You don't want to start saying things like, oh, maybe now because he's kind of realised the level, he's sort of dropped off a little bit and all those kind of things, because I think they're just lazy assumptions to make. But I do feel like there's been a few moments in games where you've just seen him be a little bit more sloppy from a defensive point of view and on the ball as well. Bodo Glimt, Vicario gave him an absolute bomb to kind of deal with that ridiculous clearance, but trying to bring that down there, I wasn't really sure about that kind of touch. There's also been other moments in games where I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah, he's had the ball nicked off him a couple of times in a sloppy manner. Yeah,
I feel like I think he started the season amazingly, but I feel like the last few games a little bit of sloppiness has crept in. So I'd say middle of good start.
No, 100%. Yeah, I agree with that. Kish, I'm going to throw you Mathis Tel. Obviously, probably had his best game for Spurs at the weekend. Where would you rank him?
I'd have him in probably. Well, obviously, I'm not actually as concerned now after that Leeds performance, but I think prior to the Leeds performance, I would have had him in concerning.
Yeah,
I'd probably have him at the bottom of about average now. I was never concerned about him because I think he's young, and I can see the talent. I can see what he's going to bring down the line. I think people have been onto his case unfairly. I think he's 20 years old, and they're expecting guaranteed kind of output already. If you look across kind of all your favorite ever players at 20 years old, they weren't anything special more often than not. So I think you have to take that into account and forget the price tag. I mean, price tags are crazy across Europe. It's not just him. But I think what we saw against Leeds was really good. I think having a number 10 behind him to allow him to just focus on being in and around the box is good when he's up front. I think if he plays on the left, having Udogie going around him is really good. He's a very specific player. And if you compare him to someone like Kudus, obviously, Kudus you can put in any team with any fullback behind him, with any number 10 next to him, and he's going to perform to a level. And there's some players that need more favourable environments and players around them to make them work. And that's just the nature of football, I guess. So I think he is someone that needs to be thought about in terms of when you chuck him in and what the dynamics are going to be like. So yeah, I think I'd probably have him at the bottom of about average. I don't think he's been good. But I'm also still optimistic about him.
100%. Do you know what? Probably the more concerning thing for me was at the start of the season with Tel was more just where is his opportunity going to come. I think it became quite obvious quite early on that Odobert was the preference on the left-hand side for Thomas Frank. I think, Tel has started a couple of games, but you were thinking about when the likes of Kulusevski, in the long-term future, when Maddison's back, when Kolo Muani's there, when he's fully fit, when Dominic Solanke's back. I'm still a little bit worried and concerned about where the opportunities
as well. So
exactly, and that was obviously a huge blow for him. And I'm a little bit concerned about where his opportunities come further down the line. But hopefully that performance against Leeds can be a little bit of a springboard.
That's the thing now. I think there's still a bit of a blocked pathway in terms of him starting games regularly, considering the fact that he's not in the Champions League squad as well. But I think hopefully what that goal will give him now is a sense of feeling that when he is on the bench, he will be more likely to be called upon and come on and can come on and make a difference.
Do you think,
though, belief in that, whether it's out wide or up front?
Do you think, though, that when Solanke and Kolo Muani are back, do you think he's even got a space on the bench? Say Solanke's starting, Richarlison and Kolo Muani are options off the bench. You've got Odobert there as well. Is that a concern for you?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I don't think it's something we can really... We've got a lot of
attacking options, haven't we? And also then you add to that potentially, like if you're looking into the new year and going, well, you're going to have Kulusevski back on the bench as well.
Yeah.
Or like one of Kudus or Kulusevski, like if he decides to go one or the other, like there's going to be a lot of attacking talent on that bench. So maybe, I don't know, I really want to see him do well. And I think he's got an opportunity now, like while these players are still out injured. Because I do feel like we're not going to see Solanke for a while.
Yeah, he's probably got till the new year to really stamp his mark, I'd say.
Maybe there's a loan there still in January. Maybe there still is a loan in Jan for him, which I don't think will be the worst thing in the world, despite the fact that I really want to see him do well here. That doesn't mean he can't do well here, but realistically, like, Kolo Muani and Richarlison are probably not going to be at Spurs next summer.
Yeah.
So probably another, that kind of clears it a little bit in terms of that pathway.
No, 100%.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'd stick him in about average as well. I'm gonna take Destiny Udogie because I think obviously he's had a very stop-start to the season in terms of those injury problems. It seems like at the start of every season now, last season, this season, he's been dealing with some injury concerns. But I think that against Leeds on Saturday, I thought he was really, really impressive, and I think we all know the level that Udogie is going to go to once he is back fully fit. I think he's a brilliant weapon to have on that left-hand side, both defensively and offensively. We spoke yesterday in Kish's video about sort of how brilliant he's going to be in the future for Spurs, the ceiling of him as a footballer. Obviously, again, not played much football this season, but when he has played, I think he's been really, really good, and I think he's been really positive. So I'm going to put Udogie quite comfortably in a good start. Just because he hasn't played as much football, I'm going to put him below Pedro Porro and below Pape Matar Sarr in there. But 100%, I mean, one of our best players when he's fully fit, I think.
He's only started 3 games this season, and I think those performances he's had in those 3 games have been outstanding. But over the course of the season,
definitely. Who am I throwing to now? I'm throwing to Kish now, aren't I?
Yeah,
I think Kish. I'm going to throw you.
I think it's me because you did Tel, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, you were just rambling on about Tel, that's why.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
So Ben, I'm gonna give you a tough one. I'm gonna give you Brennan Johnson. What do you think? What have you made of Brennan Johnson starts? Obviously, very very difficult one.
It is really difficult because again, there has been a level of output there. Scored on the opening game of the season against Burnley. Scored against Man City. Scored against Doncaster as well. But it's. I don't know, because I think I'm kind of past the point of being concerned by Johnson.
Yeah.
In the sense that I just don't see him as a part of the long-term future, really, considering the other talent that we have got in those wide areas. And when you consider that Kulusevski's going to come back, Maddison's going to come back, and maybe that'll push Simons to play more minutes out wide next season on the left-hand side, potentially. Tel or Odobert, obviously, as well. I just think Johnson has taken... When he scored goals, he's done exactly what we know he's good at, right? He's taken advantage of spacing behind. Burnley were already 2-0 up. He makes that running behind, and he's an excellent finisher from those positions. Man City as well, perfect sort of player in that game for the game plan that we wanted to execute. Comes away with a goal, does his job. And then Doncaster, I think people went massively overboard with his performance in that game because it was against League One opposition. Not to say he was bad, but you still want to see more. You still want to see him being a bit more braver, taking on people. But then we're 2-0 up last minute, game becomes stretched, Bergvall plays one ball through to him, and again, there's no other person that you want in that position to be able to go and finish it off in our squad than Brennan Johnson, right? But there's been so many other games where he has been such a hindrance to our build-up and not impacting the game whatsoever. Bournemouth, I would say that was the case. There's been other when he came on against Brighton. We kind of lost a lot of momentum in that game, even though we went on to score the equaliser when he was on the pitch. This is a really difficult one because I'd probably be inclined to put. I think a lot of his performances have been really not good, but then he's also been valuable in some of the games where we know that he can add value. Yeah. So I'd probably say about average because I'm also not concerned about Johnson because I don't think he's going to start a load of games and I don't think he's going to be a massive part of the future. So I don't feel concerned if you get what... does that make sense?
Yeah. But do you think it's concerning for him in terms of like where this squad is going in the future?
Yeah, if we're judging it on how the players are looking at their future, I would be concerned if I was Brennan Johnson. But I'm not concerned as a fan sitting here with Johnson. I'm kind of just like... I'm concerned when he starts games.
I kind of feel,
and I don't want to be hard, but I am, and I love him. I absolutely love him, and I think he can. We said about it yesterday. Like, I think in an ideal world, if you're playing FIFA, where you can have as big a squad as you want, right, and you can have someone that's got that knack of scoring a goal, then of course you keep him around. But one of Tottenham's biggest issues that we've probably got to address going into next summer is probably upgrading our starting left winger to the level of someone like a Mohamed Kudus on the right? We've spoken about Semenyo, all these other players. We wanted Savinho in the summer after we'd already signed Kudus. Right? So I would be concerned if I was Brennan Johnson, but I'm not concerned as a fan because I've kind of just accepted his level and his limitations and the fact that he's probably not going to start loads of games. So I don't know where I put him. Probably about average based on all that.
I kind of agree. I've kind of moved on from Brennan Johnson in my head in terms of thinking about starting 11 each week, thinking about players who are going to impact the game. It's kind of frustrating when he comes on, and it's definitely frustrating when he starts games now. Just 'cause I think we've got better options in there, and I don't think this squad really has much room for Brennan Johnson anymore. But I don't think he's been terrible. And again, I think it's one of those where I think he's been paired with Jed Spence, which I don't think helps his game at all, and it doesn't help Spence being paired with Brennan Johnson either. That's kind of been a bit of a nightmare on the left when that has started in games earlier on this season. I don't think he's done anything incredibly surprising this season in terms of we know that he's not going to be able to contribute greatly to build up. So I'd probably put him bottom of about average because we know what Johnson's limitations are, and he still contributes. Away at Man City, he still contribute with a goal. And I don't think he's ever as bad as some people make him out to be. But definitely in terms of when you talk about his future, there are concerns there for him for sure. But moving on to Lucas Bergvall, Kish, what have you made of Bergvall starts the season?
I've been a little bit frustrated with Bergvall's situation, but I don't necessarily think it's on him. I really don't like him as a 10. I don't think he's nimble enough. I don't think it suits his game. I think you want him to get more touches. You want him to be constantly involved in everything. He's got everything. He's so complete in terms of physically and technically. you want that kind of player to be amongst the kind of chaos in midfield and dominating in midfield. You don't want them to be trying to find pockets of space and in really tight areas. And I just think number 10s need to be slightly, he's so good technically, but slightly more nimble than him.
Yeah.
Be able to kind of turn really quickly and be agile and change direction. You know how we see Maddison do it, the way he twists and turns. I think that's not really Bergvall's game. So I'd probably have him in top of about average. I don't think it's necessarily his fault, but I haven't been wildly impressed. I've been impressed with him in moments for sure because I know how good he is. But I just think him deeper is a superior player to what we're seeing, and I haven't seen him deeper enough. I think the Burnley game he was really good second half. I can't think of. Obviously, he was good in the West Ham game, but I didn't think he was. Obviously, he got his goal, but I didn't think he was amazing in that game. So yeah,
he's good in the Champions League against Villarreal. I think that was one of his better performances as well. But
yes,
I agree. It's kind of not his fault what's happened at the start of the season.
I'm nowhere near like concerned about his performances or anything like that.
No.
I just think we need to deploy him better. So I'd probably have him in average.
No, 100%. No, I echo all of that. And I think Thomas Frank sort of coming out and saying that he really likes him as a number 10. Did he say that he sees him as a number 10? Thomas Frank.
I don't think so. No, I think he said
I'm a number 10 now, but I think he meant I've been playing number 10. I don't think he.
Yeah, I hope he does. Because I think he's still. I still think he's our best player in terms of like a number 8, and I think that using him in the 10 is mental, especially when you've got a player like Xavi Simons. I prefer Pape Sarr in the 10 if you're going to sort of set up with a midfield 3 in that way. So yeah, for sure. I don't think. Again, I think Bergvall, one of our players of the season last season. No one's concerned about Bergvall, but yeah, I agree. In terms of the standards that we now hold him to, whether that's harsh because he's 19, but with how brilliant we all know he is, I think that he has been kind of a bit of an average start to the season for Bergvall that's only going to get better. So no one's concerned, but yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. Ben, I'm going to give you Xavi Simons because you've had quite a lot to say about Xavi Simons so far this season. What have you made of his start to the year?
Really not good, actually. Probably put them at the bottom of that. No, I'd say a good start.
Is there a category that says better than Eze here, or what were you?
Yeah, well, he definitely would be in that, 100%. A good start for me. Like, you ideally from a number 10, you want slightly more output, but he's new to the league. He's finding his feet a little bit, but I think there's been moments in games and cameos where he's been absolutely outstanding. I thought he was outstanding against Brighton when he came on, totally flipped the momentum in that game, or added to the momentum that we were kind of already building, I would say, because I think we were the better team before that, but he just took us up a level in terms of performance. I think when he's played out on the left, you've seen moments of frustration, moments of quality, but you're not, a little bit like Kish was saying with Bergvall, you're never going to see the best of him there because you're not deploying him in the correct way. I'm not as big a hater of Xavi Simons on the left as a lot of people, because I think with Udogie out on the left you can balance it quite nicely and still give Simons the freedom to roam, but I do think it causes a bit of an issue in terms of the balance and dynamic because you've still not got a proper number 10 in there.
It only makes sense if you have another 10.
Like if Maddison was fit, I'd happily play Simons on the left, 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
But when he's played like Leeds, I thought he was really good. Like so many kind of moments of just brilliance. People are talking about the Rabona, but these are the kind of things that you're going to get with a Maverick kind of player like that. They want to kind of try these things, and also we've been crying out for a player that will just make something happen, like that's exciting, and it's what Kish was kind of saying with Kudus earlier. I love the fact that he kind of can play the game at his own pace, slow things down. He can take control of it. He's very commanding, demanding. I think that first goal, I just don't think he's going to kind of look back from there. If you look at how kind of like Florian Wirtz has struggled since he's come to the Premier League, Xavi Simons has struggled nowhere near to the level of that, if we're being honest. I know there's more factors at Liverpool, and I know Simons has probably come into, into a more like, I don't know, well, it's not really even more of a structured environment. He came to Tottenham when we were kind of having a decent start to the season under a new manager that's had a good pre-season to work with the players, make us a bit more defensive first, whereas Wirtz has kind of walked into something a bit different. But I've been really impressed with Simons for the most part. I think there's been games where he's been a bit frustrating, but I think you're always going to feel like that about those kind of players. Because you're always wanting so much from them. But I think we're quite close to it really, really clicking, and I think Leeds was even more evidence of that. I've been impressed with him. I'd say I'd put him below. I put him above Spence, below. Yeah, somewhere around there is fine for me. Maybe above Udogie, actually.
Yeah,
maybe
I think he's had a good start.
I want to see him play more 90s. Like I don't like taking him off.
Maybe that's just because I think he's probably getting used to the.
I think that is it. But I do think we kind of lost a bit more control when he went off against Leeds.
Yeah.
I think he's someone that he understands how to win games. So it's like those kind of Rabona things. I don't think he'd be trying in like the 85th minute.
No.
Like he's a leader on the pitch, I guess. In terms of he just understands the game so well, and I think players like that win you games. Even if it's just him retaining the ball or slowing the game down when he receives it or winning fouls, I think
that's the thing against Leeds, for example. Like even if you want to drop him back 5 yards and kind of not play him as much as a 10, kind of play him as a bit more of an 8, and then get Sarr in there alongside him and Palhinha to kind of cover all the ground, and then Simons just to kind of retain the ball, hold on to the ball, like you said, win those. I was really impressed actually with how Simons. Not that, I mean, the Rabona has been made into such more of a big thing than it should be, but like how he responded to that as well, because the first thing he did straight after that was get stuck in right in the middle of the pitch, win the ball back off the Leeds midfielder, and then drive between two players and then get fouled. So it was like, it's not like, I think with sometimes with players like that, people think, oh, why are they trying that? It's not all about you. Kind of thing. People hate those kind of individualistic players. He's not that. He just tried something in a moment and it didn't come off. It's such a big overblown thing. But yeah, I think he's been good, and I'm so excited to see what's next for him.
Yeah, 100%. I love him, and he's only going to get better, really. And people always forget about these players, 22 years old, coming to a new league. Got to allow them some time to adapt as well and proper find the best version of themselves. So I'm going to take Kevin Danso quickly because, again, a player who's not played much football so far this season. I didn't think he was great, to be completely honest, both on and off the ball when he came into the side in Romero's absence against Bodo Glimt. But again, difficult away in the Champions League, coming in to replace Romero, you're always going to notice a natural drop-off. But I like Kevin Danso, and I think he's a player who I trust as a backup defender. I like it when he comes into a back three, playing as that sort of central centre-half. Very good box defender, I think. A player who is, even on the ball, whilst he doesn't have the ability of somebody like a Romero, I like the fact that he's not scared to sort of try and play those passes and to sort of be braver on the ball than a player of his ability might naturally be. And I think that sort of points to the mindset that he has and the mentality that he has. And I really, really like Kevin Danso. But I think he starts the season with the lack of football that he's played really has been probably about average. I'm going to put him there in about average. I think that's fair. And if you boys dispute that, or
fine by me.
Yeah. I'd have him above Tel, but
you'd have him above Tel. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Kish, I'm going to throw you Rodrigo Bentancur because he's a player who has, I think, divided a lot of opinion so far this season. Some people love him, some people don't like him, some people reminisce on the 2023 Bentancur. What do you think of his starts this season?
I think there's one game I can remember where I enjoyed his performance, and that was Man City.
Yeah.
Apart from that, he's frustrated me massively, and I don't know if this is me especially looking for this thing, because I know it's been a big issue for us in terms of ball progression. I think Frank has pretty much neglected central progression, and I don't know if that's because of the personnel we've got there or because he just wants to do that. But there's been moments where there's two things that I don't like what he does. One is when he gets the ball, there's passes on that he could play forwards and he hesitates, and then the opportunity goes, and then he turns around and plays back or sideways. And then
can I just say, sorry, on that, he got himself into trouble by doing that against Leeds. You know the chance that Dominic Calvert-Lewin had where I can't remember who it was, maybe Okafor, that nicked it off him. That all came because he turned down a pass into Kudus.
Yeah. It's like he just dwells on the ball too long, and then it's like then he kind of looks as if he has no options, but the option was there. He didn't play it quick enough. The other thing I don't like about him is that he doesn't receive it in between the lines, in terms of he always stands like outside the block to receive it in like very easy to receive areas, where if you look at like Adam Wharton's, for example, he'll receive it in between two players where he can kind of pick it up and then drive in between the two players, or pick it up and quickly play it between the two players. Whereas Bentancur receives a lot in these kind of wider areas where it's much lower risk, but also much less reward, because you're not breaking down the block in terms of how you're receiving. So yeah, I don't know. He's been concerning for me. I'd have him in concerning personally. But
would you have him above or below Vicario?
the Conte stuff just has to be forgotten. As in, like, it was 3 years ago. I think he suits Conte football a lot because of how transitional it is. I think Conte loves midfielders that can run, but also he's very technically capable. So if Conte's telling him to do a certain thing every time he receives the ball, he can do it, and he doesn't have to think much. I think under Frank, there's more thinking for him to do, and that's where he lacks. His awareness isn't great off the ball either. I think he's a good presser if he's given the license to go and press.
Which is where the first goal came from, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. So I think in terms of out of possession, I think him next to Palhinha has been pretty good because he's had that protection behind him to go and be a bit more aggressive and not worry about what's behind him. It's just on the ball, I think we're really struggling with those two, especially him.
I agree. And I think that I'd also have him in the concerning category because I was expecting more from him kind of coming into this season. Like, I wasn't expecting loads from him. I've kind of come to terms with the player that he is post ACL, etc. in this system. But I was still expecting more from him. Like, it's been really frustrating. You mentioned the chance that was created for Calvert-Lewin. There's another one in the second half where he received the ball off Vicario and got it pinched off him because he was just, took too long on it and was just sloppy. And I think there's been so many moments like that this season where he's just almost looked lethargic on the ball and so sloppy on it, and that's really frustrating because I think he can be better on the ball than he's shown this season. But yeah, it's not really clicking for Bentancur so far. And I think the further frustration is that him and Palhinha just sort of highlight each other's issues more because, again, like you said, there's no real central progression when they're both in that side, which is why I think they get helped out when they are playing next to a Bergvall or a Pape Matar Sarr. And I think that it should be either Palhinha or Bentancur and not both of them, unless, you're playing one of those top sides away from home where you can sort of get away with it a little bit.
Well, that's the thing.
More.
I think Palhinha's kind of made himself, with his own performances, very, very hard to take out of the team. But you've got three very hungry, young, brave, intelligent midfielders that are sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
And especially now it's like, okay, no, we do actually want to play Xavi Simons in the 10. Like, you're kind of limiting the options for Sarr and Bergvall a little bit. And I just find it crazy that I don't know, like, one thing I find a little bit, I really like Thomas Frank and I've loved our start so far. There's a lot to be happy with, also with some concerns. But he said one thing when he came in, it was like, to not take risks is to also take risks. And I think this is something that a lot of people have spoken about, where actually being safe in possession a lot of the time is even more of a risk than being braver on it. Like, could it, like that example where they have that chance in the first half where Calvert-Lewin scuffs the shot and Van der Ven and Udogie get across right. Kudus gets into a central position in the sort of pocket where he can receive it with back to goal. You've got your best player in the team that is capable of receiving with his back to goal in difficult areas, who is physical, can marshal his way out of a difficult situation. If Kudus loses it there, you've got a set defence that can cover that situation. At worst, it's a 4v4. And if they score from it, fine, they score from it. But they're far less likely to score from it than if you dawdle on it, don't play the pass, then drive back towards your own penalty area and then get the ball nicked off you. I think that's one of the things that's frustrating me a little bit in terms of
100%.
I just want to see that take the handbrake off has become quite a common saying in football discourse recently because of what people have been saying about Arsenal. I feel like that applies to us more a little bit. We've got a lot of talent there. And I just feel we just need to take a bit more risks. And
I just think also, football's it's much more simple than people make out. Like, if you look at the top teams across Europe, name a top team that has a double pivot that is as limited on the ball as Bentancur and Palhinha. There's not a single top team who doesn't at least have one proper ball player in their midfield. Maybe even two. If you look at PSG, they've got Vitinha and Neves, Barcelona, De Jong and Pedri. Like, none of these top teams would ever allow for two sort of out of possession heavy players and limited players on the ball.
Also,
people I think
Arsenal corrected the faults they were probably having in terms of their midfield progression by signing Zubimendi and then unlocking it's just.
But I think people look at Bentancur and have a sort of aesthetic bias towards him because he does look quite nice on the eye. I think the way he can pass the ball, it doesn't look awkward or anything. I think he's got decent technical ability, so people mistake that for he's progressive, but I really, he frustrates the hell out of me, to be honest.
100%. And for me personally, I'd love to see Bergvall, Sarr and Archie Gray getting those minutes ahead of Bentancur, just sort of moving forward this season and forwards. But we are finishing off the video. I won't talk about Dominic Solanke because, again, not really played any football this season, as have most of these players down there. We'll finish off Ben, with Christian Romero. Talk to me about Romero and his starts of the season, because I actually think it's going to be interesting where you place him.
For me, he would either be top of a good start or behind Kudus in absolutely outstanding. Personally, like we were kind of speaking about.
I think I'd have him in absolutely outstanding. You know.
Yeah, I would as well. To be honest, I think let's put him there. Like I think the proof is kind of in the pudding. Of he's the only defender so far to not let Erling Haaland score a goal so far this season. And it wasn't just about the back line in that game, because we were good defensively, but his performance specifically in that game, and in terms of how he dealt with Haaland, didn't allow him a sniff, considering the hot streak that Haaland has been on so far this season, was remarkable. Again, when we're like just talking about Romero off the back of talking about Bentancur is interesting, because, you know, comes back to this idea that Spurs are struggling to progress the ball centrally, but the only one that's actually doing that is Christian Romero. I think one thing that massively went under the radar on Saturday against Leeds was his line-breaking passing ability again. Like, it's not the sort of game where maybe you'd expect it as much from him, because we're kind of how good you think maybe we'd have more of the ball in their final third anyway and kind of sustain that pressure, but he just helped unlock our ability to sort of keep that pressure on them by doing it. There were so many times where what was really nice was, and something that you want to see more, is like Kudus drifting into more central areas and Simons into central areas as well, kind of on the same line in the central zones of the pitch, where you've got Romero who can just play that ball through to one of them who is so good at playing on the half turn. Most of them were going to Kudus just because Romero is obviously playing down that side, but it just helps so much. And yeah, there's not much to say on Romero.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah, he's had so many outstanding performances. There might be tiny little moments here and there if you want to be nitpicky about certain things, but I think on the whole he's been phenomenal and our second best player behind Kudus. And I honestly don't think there's that much more to say with Romero now, because if you're not seeing it, then 100%. That's on you. I don't know much else I can say.
His floor is your defender's ceiling. And I think when Romero has a poorer game, it's just because we're so used to him just being absolutely outstanding when he's on a pitch. And hopefully him and Van der Ven can stay injury-free all season. So I think the Tottenham have a high ceiling as a side, just with those two fit at centre-half. I think it is genuinely one of the best centre-half partnerships in Europe now. I do really believe that. So yeah, we were happy with this list. There's nobody that we want to sort of move around or change. I think that
I'd have Sarr above Porro personally. I think we're kind of forgetting what Sarr did in those first few games.
Yeah,
I'm happy with that. Arguably our best player in a few games.
To be honest, I think from like Udogie to Palhinha, there's not much in any of those.
Yeah, they've all just had very good starts to the season. I think, 100%.
I think just because Porro, Sarr and Palhinha have been the most consistent in terms of their availability as well, those three have got to be the top three.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's good.
Well, really not good, man. I'm just going to leave that free.
To be honest, I don't think there's actually been a player that's been really not good. Like, even if you talk about Vicario and Bentancur, they've still had performances like City away where they were good and where I think they had good games. You look at like Richarlison, who people have been complaining about recently. Johnson, again, I think when you're talking about what you're expecting from them, like, they're not players that are going to, start lots of games, or were expected to start lots of games at the start of the season. So I think, given our start, given the fact we're third, 4 points from 6 in the Champions League, I think it'd be very harsh to put anyone in really not good. So that's I think that's the positive. Ben Davis. He's really not a good impact on the dressing room.
Absolutely outstanding. He's just a great guy to have around the place.
He deserves to belong up there. There you go, Ben Davis, some boy. Mate, he's still got his 22-23 kit on in that photo. It's probably the last time he actually played for us. But there you go.
Never forget the centre-back shift under Ange.
Yeah, thank you very much, boys, for coming on the channel. Obviously, as I said earlier in the video, we've got videos coming out on all of our channels. I think Ben and Kish's will already be out by the time this one's uploaded, so I'll link those in the descriptions. Go and watch them as well. Like and subscribe, of course, if you are new to the channel. If you're coming over from either of their channels, that would be greatly appreciated. Help a man out, you know what I mean? And yeah, nice one, lads.